Welcome in Architron LwCad R25 video. My name is Viktor Veličko, and in this video I'll show you what is new in LwCad for cinema. As you can see from headline, LwCad is now named as Architron and it is part of OTOY subscription. Don't be worried, there is still the perpetual license. The OTOY subscription is just another option. So that is a great news for any OTOY customer. So you can get Architron LwCad for cinema for free. In first chapter OTOY subscription, I'll show you how this is affecting the licensing system. Next 4 chapters are about new Nurbs system, Nurbs objects, Nurbs primitives, edit Nurbs and modify Nurbs. In these chapters I'll show you new cool tools for Nurbs modeling in cinema. Additional new features chapter, here I show you some new features in existing tools, and finally in Architron NEXT. In this chapter, as usual, I'll show you what you can expect in next versions of Architron. Thanks to collaboration with OTOY company, LwCad for cinema is now available also as an Architron license as part of OTOY subscription. So if you already have auto render subscription, then you get Architron license for free. Just go to otoy.com and download and activate. You don't need to pay extra to get these tools. If you don't like subscription system, you don't have auto render, you can still buy LwCad C4D license as a standalone perpetual license. Just go to LwCad.com and buy a regular license or upgrade existing license. So now you can choose between 2 licensing systems, subscription or perpetual license. Nurbs objects. Initial version of Nurbs objects in LwCad Architron has 2 basic modes. You can create Nurbs objects as curves or splines or as a flat surfaces, and you can switch between these 2 modes and it is still editable. So if you create more, you can add more curves into this object. If you switch to flat surfaces, you can still edit and add more curves into this object. So this initial version has only these 2 modes, splines and flat surfaces. Curved Nurbs surfaces are also implemented but disabled in this version. It will be unlocked in next versions when more tools will be implemented. You can create a Nurbs object with several different methods. First, add Nurbs command. With this command you can create empty Nurbs object, and when this object is selected, you can add more geometry into this object with Nurbs tools such as rectangle tool. Now you can add rectangles into this selected Nurbs object, and if you enable new object option, then each use of this rectangle tool will create additional new Nurbs object. So this is conventional way. Then you can convert between Nurbs and cinema splines. So let's say select these 2 Nurbs objects I just created, and you can convert these into cinema splines with Nurbs to spline command, and you can use them as cinema splines. Backward works same way, but now I will create a cinema spline with cinema tool. So this rectangle convert into spline, cinema spline, and now when you convert this into Nurbs, now you can apply Nurbs tools on this object. So on this selected, I will do more geometry into this object. So you can see this is very versatile. It's very flexible because you can switch between cinema splines to Nurbs and backwards, and you can edit cinema splines very easily as a Nurbs object. So this is very useful. Additional very useful system is a selection system, which is implemented in Nurbs objects. Cinema doesn't have a very good selection system on splines. This hole is filled with Nurbs object selection system, so you can select points, because a selection system can be accessed in Edit Nurbs tool, so you can switch between object, element, edge, point selection system, and this selection is stored into Nurbs objects. So you can select points, edges. In a Nurbs object case, it is segments of curve. Element is the whole curve, and object is the whole object. So this selection is stored into Nurbs object and can be used by several different Nurbs edit tools. Some edit tools works differently on individual selection modes. Nurbs object has also comprehensive topology system. It means that points can be shared between edges and elements, and edges can be shared between elements. In this case we have just curves, but I can show you how points can be shared between these three curves. So if I select these 3 points and join them, now you can see these 3 curves are connected with a single point. Also, you can create individual points. You can see this is impossible in Cinema. So you can have separate points. You have complete topology between points and elements, and also between edges and surfaces. But now this is locked. Will be unlocked later. So as you can see, new Nurbs engine is a really comprehensive system, because it is 15 years of development, and it is actually a 5th generation of this engine. It was developed in Lightwave, and now it is coming into Cinema. Nurbs primitives. In current version we have 5 basic Nurbs primitive tools: point, line, rectangle, circle and arc. In these 5 tools we have integrated plenty of functionality. Let's start with a line tool. With line tool you have in fact 3 different tools. First, in line mode you're creating lines or polylines. In second mode, curve mode, you're creating Nurbs curve with control points. You can also adjust weight of these control points now. So if weight is modified, then it is not B-spline but a Nurbs curve. If it's by default, then it is B-spline. And third mode, spline mode, it creates interpolation curve through the control points. All 3 modes works the same way. You can add midpoints into curve, also in line mode, also in curve mode. This is very useful. You can also delete these control points by hovering above the control point. You just use delete short key and you can delete these control points. This is also very useful. So as you can see, this tool is very interactive, and you can also set all these options, just showing the weights of the control points, showing angles, showing distances between control points, and showing point indexes. So also very useful option here is the distance option. So you can adjust distance of the last control point, last added control point, also the angle. Let's say, let's move this. You can see, so this way you can draw the lines, polylines, curves precisely from the numbers. Next primitive, rectangle tool. Rectangle tool has three basic modes: center, corner, rotate. In the center mode, the pivot is in the center and you are adjusting the rectangle from the center. In corner mode, the pivot is automatically adjusted as on the opposite of the active handle. So if I'm dragging or adjusting this corner, pivot is always on the opposite corner. And the third one, rotation mode, we have here two additional rotation modes, rotation handles. So you can create rotated rectangle very quickly. And what is the best, that you can switch between these three modes. So you can create this rotated rectangle, switch to center mode, and now adjust it as a center, and switch to corner mode and now adjust it as a corner in corner mode, then switch to rotation again and rotate it, and so on. So you can switch between it. This is highly interactive and very useful. Next is a circle tool. With circle tool you create a Nurbs circle, and we can switch between four different modes. In radius mode you have center and radius handle. In diameter we have two diameter handles and center, and we can easily switch between radius and diameter without any distraction. Third mode is a 3-point mode, so you define 3 points and circle is created through these 3 points. And last mode is ellipse mode, so you can create ellipse from one radius and 1 second radius handle. So with 2 radius handles you can create easily ellipse objects. Next primitive is a arc tool. With arc tool you can create arc Nurbs object, and you have 3 basic modes. 3-point. In 3-point you can adjust end point, start point and midpoint. In tangent mode you can adjust the tangents of the start point and end point. And in angle mode you can set the inner angle or angle of the arc, start angle, handle and end angle, handle. Additionally, you can switch this tool into spiral mode. In spiral mode you can create very nice spirals. Here with this radius end parameter you can set how this spiral will look like. So if I set this to 0, that spiral will end in the center point of this arc. And you can switch also from 2D mode, it's better here in perspective, into 3D mode. And with this depth handle you can set the depth of this now spiral or spring spiral. And if I change end radius back to 100%, now it is a nice spiral. So as you can see, a lot of options. This simple arc tool with these additional parameters, you can create spirals, springs, whatever you want. These tools are designed for speed modeling. So you have to first understand how to use them, then you will be working really fast. So when you activate the tool, then after first right mouse click you end the face of this tool, and you can start again with the same tool. So again create another rectangle. When I hit the right mouse button I end this face, and when you hit right mouse button again you are automatically switched into edit Nurbs tool, and you can start selection. So you can select let's say these edges. If you hit right mouse button again, you are reverted back into rectangle tool, and you can start another rectangle again. So this way you can really quickly change between edit Nurbs tool and primitives. So one more thing which is pretty effective is that each primitive, curve primitive, has integrated real-time booleans, so you can add, subtract, intersect with existing geometry, or cut. So just you're cutting this. And now just right mouse button, again right mouse button, and you are in edit mode, and you can check these cuts. Let's say here, I select this. This was cut with previous tool. So as you can see, really effective way how to model. And finally, the last tool is the point tool. It's a very simple tool just for adding standalone points. And if you enable add mode, you can add point into any curve segment and divide this segment into two segments. If you use the cut mode, this will divide this curve into two curves. So with add mode, you're splitting edges, and with cut mode, you're splitting the whole element or whole curve. So these are the very simple 5 primitives, but you can, once you understand these tools, you can be pretty effective. And these tools are the baseline of next advanced tools in Architron. So more functionality will be built upon these simple primitive tools. Edit Nurbs. Edit Nurbs tool is a starting tool for any edit operation on Nurbs objects. Any Nurbs primitive or edit tool will end up after dropping with right mouse button in this edit Nurbs tool. And here you can do selection on Nurbs, you can provide basic clipboard operations, and you can access topology or change topology with join and explode. You can connect, disconnect selected parts of the geometry. Nurbs selection system is connected directly to Cinema selection mode, so you can change selection also here with Cinema switch, selection switch. In point, you can select all points. In edge mode, you select edges of curves or segments of curves. Now only curves. When Nurbs surfaces will be, it will be also edges of Nurbs surfaces. With polygons, Cinema polygons selection, you are selecting elements of Nurbs object. So again, in this case, it is just curves. So element selection means now curve selection, and object selection is same as in Cinema. So the whole object is selected, or more object selection. Edit Nurbs tool has 4 basic clipboard operations: the delete, copy, cut, and paste. And all this works on every selection mode. So let's say in edge mode, you can select these 2 edges and use delete with shortcut key, or with this OpenGeo button, or from attribute manager. That's up to you. So I will be using these OpenGeo buttons, or with delete, you can quickly delete selection on geometry, even points or elements. You can also, let's say, these 2 edges, cut them from this object. You can create new empty object and paste it here. So this way you can very quickly and very easily select any parts of Nurbs geometry and move it to another layer, or transfer them between objects. Very simple, very intuitive. And finally, join and explode operations or tools. These tools are essential for connecting and disconnecting parts of the geometry. It's better to show how it works. These tools works differently on each selection mode. So I'll start with object mode. In object mode, if you before you use, you can hover with mouse button above this OpenGeo button, and you can see the result of this operation. So before you click, you can see what is going to happen. So in explode, in object mode explode, you can switch between how this object should be exploded into another object. You can explode it into connected objects like this, into elements. So each curve is now separated as object, and into edges. So now each edge is separated as exploded as a separate object. If you proceed explode button, then voila, here you have all these objects. So reverse operation for this is if you select all these objects and use the join, you can see 19 objects will be joined. So if you click to join, now we are back in original object. Now let's go to this simple object and try how join and explode works in element mode. In element mode, also edge and point mode, if nothing is selected, then everything is selected. So we can apply without selection. So let's try first to explode this object. You can see pretty nice. It explodes in these 2 points, and now if we explode, we can select each curve, each segment as an individual curve. When we use the join on everything, then you can see again it is joined back in these 2 points. So I will join it, and now you can select this curve as a whole curve, all 3 segments as a whole curve. So this is pretty easy. Same way it works in edge mode. Now we can choose. Now I will first, it is joined. If I want to separate just this segment or this edge, I will use explode, and it is separated only in this point. So if I go back to element, now this is one curve, this is second curve. Very easy, very clean joining and exploding within element mode or edge or segment mode. And finally, in point mode, you can select in which points exactly you want to disconnect or connect the geometry. So let's say this curve, I want to disconnect this curve and explode. It is now exploded into 2 points, and in element mode you can select 2 separated curves. If you want to connect this back, you have to select now. You can see now you are selecting 2 points. So if you select these 2 points, use join on these 2 points, neighbor geometry is connected together. So now in our case it is back one single 3-segment polyline. Very easy. And finally I'll show you some more complex object. Let's add some polyline with overlapping parts here, because regular floor plans are not this simple, are not that clean. You always need to do some additional cleaning and modifying redundant things. So let's do the join explode on this object. So first I will explode everything. Everything is explode, and now I will join it. And if you can see that join operation is not just connecting geometry, it is also intersecting curves and merging segments. So it means it removes redundant overlapping segments and merging points, then connecting together everything into curves. So I apply this, and now if you explode it back, the overlapping segments are removed, intersected parts are intersected. So if you now select in edges, this edge is now clean, no overlap, no redundant segments. This is excellent for managing floor plans. If you import some floor plans, there are always errors. And with join and explode operations, you remove most of the the errors in floor plan. So that's very useful and helpful. Nurbs modify. For modifications of Nurbs objects and selected parts of Nurbs object, we have 4 new modify tools: drag, move, rotate and scale. In this version this works only with Nurbs objects, but will be updated later to work with polygons and cinema splines and everything what is editable. So let's try them how these are working. Let's say on these testing objects. First, a drag tool. You can quickly switch between drag and selection with right mouse button. Just clicking right mouse button, you switch to selection. You can select here something and go back to drag, and now you can drag this selection. If nothing is selected, then with the drag tool you can drag what is under the mouse. So this is a quick way how to touch parts of the geometry. And all modify tools works very well with every selection mode. So if you are in points mode, you are dragging just points. If you are in edge mode, you are dragging or moving only edges. In element mode, you are moving the whole curves, and in object mode, you are dragging the object. Next, move tool is a more precise version of drag tool, and you cannot touch geometry with this. It works only on selected geometry. If nothing is selected, then it is moving the whole geometry. So let's try it on, let's say I select this edge and or this curve, and with move tool you can very precisely translate this curve into destination point. With first click you define from which point you are moving. Then with second click and drag you define the destination point. This is a very easy process together with snapping. So quickly you translate precisely to destination point. Next, rotation tool works with 3 steps. In first step you define a pivot of rotation. Second step is defining starting angle, and third step is the destination angle. So again, with snapping you snap this object, rotation of this object very precisely. And finally, using scale tool, again you define pivot, you define start of the scale operation, and define end of the scale operation. It works in 2D, 3D and 1D mode. In 1D it's scaling only along this line. In 2D it's scale in 2D, and 3D also 3D now not visible. So as you can see, you can move, rotate, scale and drag Nurbs objects and selected parts of Nurbs objects very efficiently, together with switching directly into edit Nurbs selection with right mouse button. This is pretty efficient modify tools. Additional new features. In this chapter I want to show you some achievements which was made to make this plugin more compatible or more blended into cinema. So first, a snapping system. Snapping system now is working with every single geometry object or every major geometry object. So whether you create polygonal object, whether you create the spline, cinema spline, or text object, or you create the parametric LwCad object, or let's say this R21 parametric object, or you create a new Nurbs primitive, then every single tool in this plugin will be able to snap to this object. So you can snap to everything now. This is a huge achievement because previous version was not able to snap to cinema splines. Now it's able, because let's say you create wall, you can create wall along any object. So you can outline any object in cinema. So it's way much more compatible with cinema now than version before. This is a first big achievement. Second improvement is the attribute manager style. Previous tools, which still have the previous style of attribute manager, the attribute manager looks like this. So it is the original version, and every new tool in this plugin has already attribute manager identical to cinema, as you can see here. This is cinema style. So this is still in process, but every new tool is already blended with cinema in the look of the attribute manager. And the third improvement is the interactivity of tool handles. This is improved in all tools of this plugin. So even old tools, now handles are interactive. So if you hovering around the handle, it is highlighted, so you exactly see if you click which handle will be affected. This was previously static, so sometimes it was very quirky because if you clicked and you was not sure what's gonna happen. Now you exactly see which handle will be adjusted. You're just hovering around this handle and it is highlighted. If it's not highlighted, then you see the new additional line segment is created. If you are close enough to the handle, now it is red, and you see, then if you click, you are moving this handle. This is very useful, very useful, because it improves the interactivity of every single tool. Architron NEXT. In this chapter I want to show you what you can expect from the next version of Architron, which will be released probably sometime around early next year, probably with release of next cinema version. So you can expect next set of Nurbs edit tools for offset, round, divide, reduce, refine, weld, trim and extend. So you will get complete set of edit tools on Nurbs curves, and the toolset will become really powerful with these tools. You can expect also Nurbs shape library system for storing 1D, 2D shapes. This is very needed for additional parametric tools. And if there will be time, you can expect also additional tools for extruding and profiling on 3D models, of course, 3D objects. For extruding, you can create molding, facade details. With profiling, you can create pipes, profile cables. Within a second, with the use of shape library, you can click between shapes and these detailed objects are created. These tools are already done in LwCad. They're pretty effective, very popular, and a lot of artists guys using them. So that will be a huge improvement in your pipeline if you are into archviz or detail. If there will be also some requests from users, some tweaks, it will be done. Of course, it will be reasonable. So I'm really looking forward to show you this next version, which will improve again existing plugin. And thank you for watching this video.